Hello, and welcome to Story Behind the Story, where romance readers and authors connect. I'm Reese Ryan, author of sexy, emotional romantic fiction featuring lots of family drama, surprising secrets, and a cast of complicated, sometimes messy characters. And I am super excited today to be talking to Jacquelin Thomas. We're going to be talking about dealing with difficult real life issues in romance while still delivering that happily ever after that is part of the romance brand. So we're going to be chatting about that today. So first of all, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. We are trying to be as interactive as we can, so feel free to drop your questions, comments, what have you, in the comments, and we'll address them as we have time throughout the course of the show. And before we get into today's show, just a couple of things. First of all, if you haven't been around, or if you don't follow me, or you're not in one of my groups or whatever, recently or this past weekend, I was excited that one of my favorite books that I have written, and that is Engaging the Enemy. And that is Parker and Kaylee's stories, book 3 in my Bourbon Brothers series, won a Vivian Award, and I'm super excited about that. I'm super proud of that book. I just love those characters. They still stay with me. And so I was excited about that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that my first book in my Holly Grove Island series, which is Second Chance on Cypress Lane, is actually on sale right now. It is $1.99. The ebook is, so if you haven't read Dexter and Dakota's story, small town story, definitely pick it up. So that's that. And if you're new here, please subscribe so that you will know when the next show is coming up, which for me is going to be August the 18th. I'm going to be talking about balancing fun family drama with romance with author Priscilla Oliveras. So that's going to be on August the 18th. And if you subscribe, you'll know when the next shows are always coming up. So now let's get into today's topic. And again, like I said, we love to hear your comments and stuff. So by all means, if you have questions, comments, please let us know. And I'm going to bring on our guest for this week. And that is the fabulous Jacquelin Thomas. Welcome to Story Behind the Story.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations again on the Vivian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and thank you for all that you did. I appreciate that. So, for anybody who is not familiar with you, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you write?
Okay, I am a mother, a wife, driver, cook, caregiver, sex goddess. I'm a writer, as you can tell. I'm a writer. I write books. I write actually in several genres. I write women's fiction. I write, of course, romance, which is my first love. I write romantic suspense and young adult fiction. And under my women's fiction, I guess you would say, I also write inspirational and Christian fiction. So I write a little bit of everything.
And give us a little bit of your journey, your personal, because you've been writing for a very long time. How long
Oh, wow. It's been 24 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's fantastic. And you wrote for Kamani, right? As well.
And
you wrote for Kamani as well, right? You wrote for Kamani as well, right?
Well, I started off with Kensington. I actually started my first book was published in 1997 with Kensington Books with Arabesque. And I now have 87 books published.
Say that again?
87.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Family for the Firefighter.
Wow, that is
actually Unexpected Serenity will be book 87. So Family for the Firefighter was book 86. But 24 years, soon to be 87 books. And my journey was fairly simple. I was in corporate America, and I got pregnant with my third child. Actually, I got accepted in law school. I was actually getting ready to go back to school to be a, to finish law school. And I found out I was pregnant. Now, the thing about that is every time I've tried to go to law school, I got pregnant. So this time I had three children. This was my third pregnancy. So I gave up on law school because I didn't want to have any more children. So while with the third pregnancy, I had some difficulties and I was on bed rest. And my sweet husband could not pick a good book out to save his life. So I complained, and he's like, well, write one. You're a writer, write a book. And that's what I did. So while I was on bed rest for 5 months, I wrote my very first romance.
Wow.
And after I had my baby, I went to my very first RWA conference, and it was in Dallas, Texas at that time. And the first person I met was Beverly Jenkins.
Oh my
Of
goodness.
course, I was fangirling all over the place. And then I met Donna Hill, Frances Ray, Gwen Foster. And again, I'm fangirling because I read their books, and they walked up to me and they're like, oh, so you're a writer? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, why are you whispering? And I'm like, because how am I calling myself a writer with these great authors? And so Donna Hill said, well, our editor is here. So are you going to pitch, right? And I didn't even know what a pitch was. So I'm like, no, I'm not. And she kind of excused herself. And then she came back a few minutes later while, I was talking with Frances and Gwen, and she handed me a card, and she's like, you have an appointment tomorrow with
Oh my
Monica
goodness.
Harris, who was the editor of Arabesque at that time. So I'm thinking, well, I don't know what to do. And I didn't know if my book was any good or anything. I just finished it. And so I was so nervous and so afraid. But Donna Hill and Frances, they coached me on pitching. And they didn't even know me,
Wow.
but they coached me. And so the very next morning, I had my pitch. I flubbed it up, but she still asked for my book. Yes, see the manuscript, Monica did. And so I walked out the room, and Frances and Donna and Gwen, they were all standing there like, what happened? And I'm holding up her card like she wants to see the manuscript. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so 19 weeks later, she made an offer, and I didn't tell anybody. I waited for them to call me back and tell me they made a mistake. But the week before she made the offer, I actually, and I'm dating myself, you can tell how old I am. I was on AOL in the forums. So you were probably too young for that. But I was on, I was on AOL, and and there was a post from Deirdre Knight, who was just starting the Knight agency. So I was her first client.
Oh my goodness.
And I was her first sale. I was her first sale. Yeah. I'm represented by her sister now, but I was
Deirdre. I didn't know that because that's my agent.
Yeah, we're both rep by Pam.
I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm. But awesome. Yeah. So I was awesome. With Deirdre. I was with Deirdre for 17 years. But I was her first sale, and it came like she offered to represent me. Then the following week, the offer came, and I'm like, calling her like,
wow.
Monica called, and she made an offer, but I'm not sure she knew that it was me, and she just started laughing. And so she's like, I'll give Monica a call. And so they kind of played telephone tag. And so, when you're a new writer and you're waiting, for that offer, it takes forever.
Yes.
And it seemed like they kept missing each other. And I'm on pins and needles. And I'm like, and Deirdre called and she said, oh, she offered you a book contract and went through all of that. And I'm sitting here like, but I only wrote one book. I don't even have an idea for a second book. And so that's kind of how my journey started. And, Monica left about 3 months after that. So I'm thinking, oh gosh, the new editor, what if she doesn't like my work? My career is going to be so short.
Yes,
and so that's when Jacquelin Thomas came in. And then, so I sold my first book February 19th, 1997. In September, and I remember these dates, and it was the 8th of September.
Wow.
And m- Karen called and introduced herself and said that she liked my book and liked my writing and liked my voice. And she goes, "Do you think you could do some holiday books?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I told her I had an agent, because I guess I don't know what was what, but she said, "Well, I'd like for you to do three: one for Kwanzaa, one for New Year's, and one for Christmas." And I'm like, "Okay."
Wow.
So I'm like, "That's 5 books this year, and I only wrote one, and I don't have a clue." So, so anyway, that's how my career started, and I just kind of fumbled my way through it, and I think that's what we all do. It amazes me sometimes when it seems like people just know and they just have this whole thing of stories. Now, I do have a idea box with 48 ideas for books that I've not written yet. So as I guess became more confident,
Yeah.
and the more that I started to write, the more the ideas started to come.
Yeah.
So on average, I was basically doing 4 to 5 books a year. And at one point, I was writing for 3 publishers because I had a different publisher for each genre: one for women's fiction, one for YA, one for Christian fiction. And of course, I transitioned from Kensington to BET Books, then to Harlequin
Oh my gosh.
with my romance.
Wow. Wow. That is something. So many stories. First of all, so many parts of that story are so amazing. And hey, Kristen, how are you? And hello, everyone who's here with us today. And if you're joining us directly from Facebook, look in the Facebook post in the description and click that link to give StreamYard the ability to see who you are. Otherwise, we can see your comments, but we can't see who you are. So
Oh,
there's just so many parts of that story that are so amazing, just like your whole journey. But also, I love these stories of sisterhood in the author community, especially with people, amazing, writers like Beverly Jenkins and stuff. Even now, the generosity that they have is
well,
just
back then, after I told them my soul, the one thing that Frances and Donna and Gwen, all of them did for me, again, dating myself, they sent me a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, and each of them had their book clubs. Back then we had a database of the book clubs across the country, and they shared that with me with the promise that I would pay it forward.
wow.
And that to me was so amazing, from 3 women who really didn't know me. Frances Ray actually became my mentor. Beverly Jenkins was a mentor of mine. Donna, a mentor. And I love these women unconditionally. You
Yeah,
know, I think about every award I've ever won is dedicated to them,
yeah.
because they believed in me when they didn't even know me.
Right. Oh my god, it
You know,
just sends chills
and,
down my spine.
and they encouraged me, when I was struggling between making the decision to kind of give up romance and everything and strictly focus on Christian fiction. That was a struggle for me. And Gwen and I had a conversation, Francis and I had a conversation, and I mean, they asked some really good questions. They played devil's advocate, but the main message for them was, you write clean. You write like you don't have to give it up. Why do you feel you have to give it up? But
Mm,
at that time, I felt that's what God was leading me to do. And as it turns out, as you see, I still write romance.
mm,
So but it was a journey. I had to kind of go through that to really understand what it is that I wanted to write. Because when I initially started writing, my books did have love scenes. They were still kind of pretty tame to some authors, but you know now they don't exist, and that's what I can live with, and that's what that's me. So I write clean fiction, and it's not a judging thing or anything like that, because I read you, I read Brenda Jackson, I read everybody. Now Brenda makes me blush, but I love a good story. I love a good love story. So I read everybody. So Shakespeare. I just love a good book.
right.
So I read across the board, and I write across. I guess you would say I write across the board pretty much too. My most recent books, I have incorporated because my dad is Cherokee, so I'm Black and Native, and so I've started to incorporate more Native characters because that's the
Mhm.
other part of me. And for years I've wanted to do that, and I wasn't stopped, but I just felt, there would be the time when I could do it. And so now I do that. I do write about, you know, being Black and Native.
Yeah, I love that. I love that we're seeing more of that. So I'm really excited to hear that you're doing that. And just some of the things you talked about just now, like that pace of 5 books a year. Because I did that for like maybe 3 years where I was doing like almost five. It's a lot, even for
Yes,
one
it is.
publisher. And then when you throw in the mix of writing for multiple publishers, like that has been a struggle for me. So wow. For you to
Yeah,
have been doing that for this for a while,
I was
it is a
much
lot.
younger.
It
I
is
was
a
much
lot.
younger. Well, let me add too, I'm a full-time writer. I retired years ago. Um, Pretty much when my writing income was equal to what I was making in corporate America. And, when I got my first six-figure deal. So I was able to, retire so I've been writing full time for over 20 years.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So let's get into the topic of today. And so while I'm doing that, I'm just going to say again, hello and thank you to everybody who's been joining us this evening. We appreciate you. If you're new here, by all means, make sure you like, subscribe, and share so that other readers will find the show. And one of the questions we're going to ask and we're going to talk to some of the readers about later is, do you read strictly for escape or do you enjoy seeing characters overcome difficulties in romance? So you can share with us in the comments there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So my question to you, Jacquelin. Some readers say that they read strictly for escape and don't want too much realism in their romance. I
Mhm.
know I personally enjoy reading about characters who have to earn that happy ending and overcome different challenging situations. So we all know that romances have to have that happy ending. So why do you choose to throw such tough situations at your characters in romance?
For me, I don't see it as tough situations. I see it as real life, because it's what I know. I did not grow up in a, I mean, I grew up, you know, with challenges. There were issues. There were things that in my life that were a struggle. And for me, I enjoy a good escape. I like to read books, to escape from reality, as well. But for me, I'm a natural, I want to say encourager. So I know that me growing up, the one thing that got me through was my faith and knowing that every situation, no matter how bad, you can ride that storm. You can take it minute by minute, but you will come through it. It's a temporary situation. It's not a permanent situation. It may feel permanent. So I write books, I guess, to encourage readers that may be going through something, um, that you can still find love no matter. I mean, you may not be a very nice person. Some of my characters that end up in books of their own, start off not being very nice people, and I like to show that they mature and evolve. And it may take two or three books, but and eventually too, they get their happily ever after. Because I also believe in second chances. I believe that sometimes when we're young, that we do stupid things, but I believe in redemption. I believe in redemption. And I believe that it takes us going through some real things in life to grow. I don't regret any of the pain of my past because it's made me the woman that I am today. You know, um, Readers may not know, but just a year ago is now a year I lost my daughter, my first heartbeat. That was the worst thing I could ever imagine happening. And I survived it.
Yeah.
Yes, I miss her. Yes, I hurt, but I survived it. And so I write about people like that who've gone through real loss, but that there is a better day.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it doesn't erase the pain, but we can't live in our pain. And so, if we don't write books like that, how do we help others? So my books, I say, really is I write to entertain you. I write to inspire you, and also to educate you. And I see this comment. I love it, angsty romance. I'm wondering if you ever get negative feedback. I don't read my reviews, so I'm sure I probably do. But I don't read my reviews for that very reason. I'm not afraid of the negative feedback. It's just that I don't want it in my head. And I write what I feel that God gives me, and I own it. And I know that it's not for everybody, but I do get email from people who said, thank you for writing about this. I just lost this, and reading this book helped me through it. So I just, I'm sure I get negative feedback. I'm sure I do. I just don't read it,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
And uh, Kristen said it better than I could say it. Just to say that we are all so sorry to hear about your daughter,
Thank
and
you. Thank
you
you.
know, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
No,
So, but and what you were saying about that is that you feel like in writing your stories where people go through these difficult times and then come out of it happy, or finding their mate or whatever it is that makes them happy, um, is encouraging. And that's one of the things I like about including some real life issues and stuff in my stories, is because I think about all the people I know, either personally or in the world in general, who are dealing with different issues. And I want to see those people. I want them to know that, hey, that you're happy and niggas out there too. So
yeah,
I,
and that you that
that's
you
one
can
of the
move
reasons
on.
why I like tackling issues like that. So
Yes,
the book
that you
I just
can move
turned in, the last book in the Bourbon Brothers series, there is some serious there's a serious issue for the heroine. So
on. Hmm.
you know, I like being able to show people going through those different things. And the other thing I feel is important about it, and it's the opportunity we have as writers, is readers tend to be more empathetic, and I believe one of the reasons they are is because they get a chance to read about all different people who don't look like them, love
Exactly.
like them, what have you. And so they get a chance to get me in those people, that person's shoes, and kind of see what their life is like, you know
Exactly.
um, so
Exactly.
they can learn some empathy. And so I also like being able to give people that opportunity to see what other people are experiencing, and maybe
Exactly.
look at people differently. I whenever sometimes I'll come across a story, or I'll meet somebody going through something, and it
Mhm.
really makes me think about people I've encountered. Not that encountering something, having a bad issue, gives you license to be a horrible person, but it does make me think about, we don't know people's stories. We don't know what's
Right.
going on in their lives. So
Right. I suffer from chronic panic disorder, and um, I was diagnosed 27 years ago. And what people, the readers don't know, there was a period back in around 2015, 2016, I kind of disappeared. And what it was, I was a prisoner in my own home. I developed agoraphobia,
mm,
and that's where you cannot leave your
right,
home.
right,
And I could not leave my home for a year.
right,
And that was when I had to say I have a problem and get help.
yeah,
And I hid this from my agent, the publisher. When I had to go on book tour, it was, it was terrifying. I
yeah,
would cry for days because,
yeah,
I was afraid of having an attack. And it got to the point where I was able to have my husband travel with me, and that was how I got through it. But during those times before that, it was terrible, suffering from panic disorder. So you'll see there are times in certain books that I talk about. characters having panic disorder because I understand that, because I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
You know, I had to fight to to leave my home.
Yeah.
And I sold that house after I was able to leave it. You
Yeah.
know, I sold it. I got out of there. But it was a struggle and I had to get help. I had to get professional help. You
Yeah.
know, I had kept it a secret and now I share because I found that the more I talk about it, the less I fear it. You see,
Yes.
so keeping secrets like that do more harm than good. So I do write about a lot of characters that deal with mental disorders because that's something I'm very passionate about. Because I suffered from panic disorder at 50, I went back to school and got my master's in psychology because I needed to understand how to fight this.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I really needed to understand how to fight it. And so, you know, my oldest daughter that passed away, she was a typical bipolar. I needed to also understand how to help my daughter.
Right. Right.
And so I went back to school. And so I write about these things. It's not that I am a negative Nelly or anything like that. It's just these are very real issues that we deal with today in our community. And so many people keep secrets. And I hid it. I hid it from my agent. I hid it from my publisher. You know, I would be invited to do book events, and Reese, I would be, oh, I'm sorry, I'm booked that day. I have another commitment, but please consider me next year.
Yeah.
It because I couldn't leave my house.
Yeah.
And I never want to live that way again. And so now it's about being transparent, but using my experience to help others through my fiction stories. So, you know, A Family for the Firefighter, he lost his wife and his child, and he never thought he would ever love someone again because that was his soulmate. And he didn't realize that when Misty Brightwater came into his life, that you can actually love again. And so, you know, A Family for the Firefighter, they came together through her little girl, a little 3-year old named Talay. And this was the first child he held after losing his child.
Mm.
Now, when I wrote A Family for the Firefighter, I just lost my mother, and my mother died 8 months before I lost my daughter. So I
Mm.
had to deal with two deaths
Right.
very close together.
Mm.
And, you know, in writing, you know, Family for the Firefighter, I remember telling my editor, well, he lost his daughter and he lost the love of his life. I want to make sure I do this justice, the pain that he was in, because at that time, I lost my mom, but not a child or my husband. So then the book I just finished, Hometown Hero, in that book, let me just tell you now, he's a double amputee. So that is going to be a book where this is someone who does not, he feels like he left, that he did not protect his team.
Mm.
He's a Marine, and he lost his whole team and he lost his legs. And so he goes through periods of PTSD, depression, anxiety, because when you've gone through that kind of trauma, you're going to have those residual effects. And he doesn't feel like he has survivor's guilt. He doesn't feel like he should be alive.
Yeah.
And so that's so just to prepare everybody. But it is more so what I love about that story is I wanted to honor the Marines. My father was a Marine, and I wanted to honor my father because he was a hero to me, and he did not feel like that. Um, and I just wanted to write a story to just kind of honor the Marines and all service people. I do genuinely appreciate service. And so I hope that I have done them justice. But I also wanted to talk about those invisible wounds that these soldiers and Marines and, you know, these people carry, and how it affects the family
Yeah.
and how it affects them. So that's a very heavy issue. And in writing that book was when I lost my daughter. So, you know, I'm like, okay, I've got to find something else to write about
Yeah.
because these books are heavy. And but I was able to put all my pain from those two losses into those two books. But out of those two books, I can tell you my healing came.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what
And
I'm saying?
yes, yes, and just like it was, that's what you got from it. I know, I already know that there's going to be other people who are going to read it and feel the same. And I just want to take a moment to kind of just acknowledge some of the comments we're getting from Mama Tony. I'm so proud of you for sharing this with us. Thankful you came out now. The Turner family applaud your courage, inspiration, and success. Hugs. Creative Crafters said thank you for sharing. Bree Hill said so inspiring. So I
Oh,
mean, just, and I think too, in my last two books that I've turned in, neither one of them are well, just a little married. It deals more with mental health issues
hmm,
than, I wanted to be just really straightforward about the fact that the hero went through stuff
yes.
and that, he needed to get some professional help. And then the heroine in my book also talks about the fact that she needed to do that. And that was really important to me at that point, because I mean, I definitely personally have people in my family who have, struggled with mental health issues and stuff. And I feel like it is absolutely an issue in communities of color
Yes.
where we're just now starting to more talk about it
Mm-hmm.
and not feel like it's a personal failing, when somebody has some other kind of issue, like a health issue, like MS or cancer or something like that, you don't think of them as personally failing. But for some reason, we've always had this kind of thing, about mental health in our communities. And so I am glad to see more and more, entertainers and athletes and stuff of color talking about things like this. And so I'm like, it dawned on me like I could do my part too, to
We
be,
have to shed
open and
light.
honest about that.
We have to shed light. Education is important. For me, it was understanding what I was going through because I thought I was dying. I thought there was something fundamentally wrong with me. Because
Yeah.
again, when you say you have a mental issue, it's a stigma. And like you say, people of color, the Native community, they suffer with mental health. They're
Yeah.
they're high.
Yes.
The data shows, high numbers, and we have to talk about it. We have to be willing to share. And like JB Williams is saying, hearing your story always reminds me of how much we need each other. We do need each other. We do need each other. And if we stop judging, we see people on the street and we judge them, you know there should be initiatives in place, even with, I have, my husband has a cousin who's a sheriff, and one of the things I'd asked her, because we've had some turbulent times, and what training do you have to handle someone like me who is claustrophobic, who has panic disorder, and if I'm confronted with a policeman and he wants to handcuff me, that is going to be an issue for me. It's going to trigger me. And so what training do you have, and what initiatives are in place to identify when someone has a mental disorder versus someone being rebellious or being violent, things like that. So those are the things that I think we need to talk about more. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not judging or blaming anybody. I want to look at it as educating people. If you see someone who starts to freak out on a plane, maybe get them some water, have them slow down their breathing, have them count from 100 backwards. You see what I'm saying? Offer
Mm-hmm.
them a piece of hard candy. I carry the old church candy,
Oh, you got the butterscotches in your purse.
Well, kind of, yes, because I don't really care too much for peppermint, but things like that, because and find and ask them to focus on something. You know, my grandchildren talk about the art that's in my house. I have a lot of abstract art. It looks like ink blots. And my granddaughter was like, and she is a great artist, and she was like, Gigi, I hope you didn't pay too much for those paintings because I could have done that. And I'm like, hush. But they're my focus points. So if I start to feel panicky, I focus and try to see what I can see within that ink blot and until I can get my anxiety manageable. So my house is geared toward I have focus points everywhere. So if I
Mhm.
start to feel a panic attack coming, I know what to do.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you have someone who has a panic attack for the very first time, they don't even realize what it is.
Right.
It's that fight or flight kicking in, and the first thing they want to do is basically they may try to fight you. They're not being violent, they're panicking. You
Mhm.
have to get it down. So you have to talk to them and you have to keep your voice soft and low. And so again, I try to do these things through my books to
Right.
educate people on not just judging and oh they're having a nervous breakdown. No, they're triggered by something.
Yeah.
And so again, I try to educate and entertain. Um, it may work, it may not.
It's working. It's working. Believe me, all your readers here absolutely believe it's working. And
Thank you.
Kristen Higgins made a comment. And yes, I love you, Kristen. I love you. Can you take these you take these issues on and get us a happy place? Thank you for loving my tropes. You never write a fluffy book. How do you balance that? And it's weird. It's kind of like what you were saying earlier, Jacqueline. Like I just feel like it's life, this ability to balance bad stuff because I've definitely had in my childhood some serious issues, that I had to deal with and get past and find a way to just be a happy person
Yes,
despite those things. So I think I bring a lot of that to the
you
story,
do.
right? You
You
know, thank you. And so, like, one of the things, for instance, engaging the enemy, which just won the Vivian. One of my biggest regrets about writing that book is that, like, when I wrote that book, the male character, I wrote him in my head as an undiagnosed, not formally diagnosed black male on the autism spectrum. And because it is something that occurs a lot in our community, and the reason one of the reasons why I didn't just say that that's what his issue was, like I tried to describe it so that anybody who has somebody like that in their family who is on the spectrum would recognize it.
Well, I did. I
But
kind of thought so. I mean, but I have someone in my family like that. So, but that's exactly what I thought. I did kind of wonder why you didn't kind of.
the reason I didn't say just flat out that he was on the spectrum is because I was so terrified that I was going to get it wrong, that I was going to not do justice to this character, and that it was just going to be just a crap show. You know what I'm saying? So I was so afraid, and so that's one of my biggest regrets always is, and so I always say that now. But it was one of my biggest regrets that I didn't put that in the book, and so in this final book, actually there is a character that's in it that is on the spectrum. So and like you said, I'm just pulling from what I know in my life. My youngest grandson is on the spectrum. He is
But
severely
there's a lot of
autistic.
resource information out there. Don't be afraid. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid.
Oh
And
yeah.
I know
I have it. It's
yeah,
my son is on the spectrum, and then his son, my youngest grandson, is on the spectrum. Like you said, there's some things you do, no matter what, you're gonna have somebody who's gonna complain.
and that's why I don't. That's
But
why
it
I
is
don't
what it
read
is
my
because a
review.
lot of what I'm pulling from is what has happened in my life, so I
Yeah,
know it's realistic. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, but yeah, I just try to pull. I just think about the experiences that I've had in terms of, pulling from both the good and the bad.
And
Dealing
that's
with
me
both.
too. That's me too. And just trying to provide hope because
Yeah,
again, bad things are going to happen. We cannot live in this be immune to anything bad happening. So things are going to happen, and we just have to find a way to make it to the other side. Is what I say.
yeah,
We just have to find a way to make it to the other side because bad things are going to happen. The most unimaginable is going to happen.
yeah. Another comment from another viewer, Sherry Hollister, who's also a writer, says, "You are an inspiration. Thank you for sharing your journey. Fiction helps so many people understand
Oh,
other people and their battles." Yes, Sherry. That is one of the things I absolutely love
thank you.
about, writing characters and stuff who are dealing with different things, because it does give us a chance to have some insight into other people dealing with other situations and stuff. So,
Yeah.
for
But the good
instance, the
thing
book I
about,
just turned in. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the good thing about what we do is that we do have that happily ever after. you
Yes.
know
Yes.
there are books being written, mainstream, and sometimes it's not that happily ever after. For me, I want that because I want people to understand that happiness is a state of being. It
Yes.
is it's a state of mind. You have to choose to be happy. It
Yes.
doesn't just come. And it is not something where, oh, I found the love of my life, he makes me happy. Because I mean, I have the love of my life, had him for 30 years, and he makes me happy. But I have to be happy in spite of him. He can't be my reason for being happy. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's what I want readers to get out of my books too. That you find that your place of peace, and it may not be in your soulmate, the love of your life. Yes, I want you to have that fabulous wedding at the end, that perfect engagement, and all of that. But I want my characters to get to a place of peace before they tie the knot. I don't want tying the knot to be the result because that's unrealistic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It is unrealistic.
And some of the comments, I think it was Miss Loretta was saying about, we never know other people's experiences, and I truly feel that one of the biggest problems that we have right now in the world is that people lack empathy. They lack empathy for anybody who doesn't look like them, who doesn't live in the same kind of neighborhood they live in, who doesn't, just does isn't culturally the same. They lack empathy, and so, again, reading stories about people who are going through other things, can give you so much, in terms of empathy. And I remember reading a book one time. It was at the height of what was going on with immigration and the wall and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I read a historical written by Michelle Stiles, dealing with a woman who, it was like a Viking story about a woman who, gets on a boat with her younger sister who has like a disability or whatever, and, goes to this foreign land, to start a new life because of, the things that have been going on where she lived. It was dangerous where she lived. And I'm like, that's just like now. People often read stories like that and like, oh, that's so amazing, that's wonderful, but they can't understand in real life. They have no empathy, zero empathy for people who are struggling, or, in a dire situations, and would risk their lives and the lives of their family for a better life. So it's just, reading overall, not just contemporary, can give us insight into other people and give us empathy if we are willing to have the empathy. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Again, I try to carry that message even in my books, again, with the theme of forgiveness, especially in my Christian fiction. And I know that I have romance readers that won't read my other books. They only read my romance, and that's fine. I'm grateful and appreciative that they read me at all. I have, Christian and inspirational readers who won't read my romance. They just read the inspirational stuff, and I'm happy to have them as well. And then I have other readers that read everything. So, not just in my inspirational or Christian books, I try to even show in my romance the importance of community, the importance of unity. One of the reasons I was overjoyed to write for Harlequin Heartwarming was because that whole series is about community and family values. And so, it's sweet romance. And I love the sense of family. I love the sense of community, because this is what I would love to see in the real world.
Yeah.
Us be
Yes.
more of a community. Us, I want that so much because we are great people and we are capable of this, you know. So I would love to see us get back to the people that we really should be.
Yes, I love that. And I love being able to write the world as you want to see it. Uh,
Yes.
and thank you, Bree. She says, I think it was so real because many of us have a family member or a
Yeah.
loved one who isn't diagnosed. Definitely, like I said, that happens. It happens, period, across the board, but especially in communities of color. Often, you have people who are not diagnosed. Um, can't make everybody happy. Someone always has something to say. Veronica, that is so true.
Yeah. I
That's
don't
so
try. I don't try. I just write the best book
that's
I
so
can.
true. That's so true.
Yes.
And Mama Tony says no empathy for dumb reasons. Yeah, that yeah, it's sad. It's absolutely sad. So, first of all, do you have a copy of your book to show us the cover of A Family
Okay.
Full of Firefighter? I, I
Yes.
should ask you that ahead of time to have it there. And while
If
you're
you can
there,
see
you
it.
go. So
Ooh.
that's the book we're referencing, A Family for the Firefighter, and that's Harlequin. They're heartwarming, right? So
Yes.
yes. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what do you feel are some of the biggest challenges that you face when you're tackling difficult real life issues in romance?
You know, getting over getting over the fact that um some readers are probably not going to like what I'm writing because I pour so much of myself into my books. And again, that's one of the reasons why I don't read reviews. I do appreciate, so anyone who does reviews for me, please know that I appreciate them. But for my mental health, um, it's just best that I don't read them because I need to focus on my writing. And in order for me to write the best book I can't have those voices in my head because I think most writers will tell you we can have a million good reviews and have one bad review, and that one bad review is the one that we remember most.
Isn't that the truth? It's
Yes,
wild. Like, you like you said, you have 99, excellent reviews, wonderful comments, and then it's that always that one just sticks in your head. I don't know what it is about, us as people. I don't know. But it's like that every time. So
it is, and so for me, because even though I've been doing this for 25 years, well, 24 years, and I have all these books, you always wonder, um, did I write this book well? Is this my best written book? Do readers see a steady growth? Because what you want is you want your readers to see you grow as a writer. And so I sit down and I just go through that whole thing like, okay, are they going to throw this book back at me? Like the week of any release day, I get sick the week of the release day
mm,
every time. Even
mm,
now, I get sick. I always get sick the week of a release because I am second guessing myself.
yeah,
Did I say this? Should I have done this? I always second guess. Like with a hometown hero. My editor, I was like, maybe I need to go through it one more time before but at some point you have to let your baby go. And
yeah.
so for me, I think those are the things that really I struggle with is that is my character lovable? Is he likable? And depending on which genre, if it's women's fiction, some of my characters are not very likable and they're not intended to be. It's intentional.
Mhm.
I want you to love to hate her or
Mhm.
that kind of thing. But I care about my characters. So I always care that I've made them the best they could be,
Yes.
that I've drawn them the best that they could be. With this book that's coming out in February, Hometown Hero, and the hero in that book is actually Leon's brother in A Family for the Firefighter. Leon and Trey have a wonderful brother relationship. They're brothers. And so when I was writing A Family for the Firefighter and I created Trey, I knew automatically because he was trying to take over this that he would get the next. But I wanted to just really show the dynamics of their relationship. Yeah, I think Trey wanted to be the first book. That they're
That
competitive,
happens sometimes.
so
Characters get in there
they're
and take
they're
over.
competitive. So he's trying to take over. But I really and I wanted Misty. I wanted to show a woman who had been through a lot with her ex-husband, who was also kind of dealing with a lot with her, his parents, and in her own childhood, what she dealt with her father not being there. Because a lot of times, young ladies, and I think young boys too, anytime the father leaves the home, sometimes there's issues, those issues of abandonment, those seeds of abandonment, and they grow and they affect you as a teen and as an adult. I still feel the abandonment of my parents. My grandmother raised me. She got me when I was a year and 3 months old. Now, my parents were young. So the best thing they could have done for me was give me to my grandmother because my parents were young and they weren't ready. And while I understand that now, as a child,
Yeah.
I was abandoned.
Mhm.
And then they went off and they had family, more children, and they raised those children.
Mhm.
And so that was an issue for me for a long
Yeah.
time. I felt rejected, that they didn't want me. And so, I grew up and I was able to have that conversation with my dad before he died. And, I was able to have that conversation with my mom before she died. And so I, there was a lot of forgiveness, and I can say that I can't say I'm completely healed because I've worn those scars for so long, um, and it's caused me to um, kind of be guarded a little bit, and I'm aware that I'm a little guarded because not for any reason, but just that I had nobody, and I had to, you know, it was just me, and so
Mhm.
I'm very protective of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, to the point that I can be at times, if I feel like I'm being attacked, I go into confrontation mode.
Mhm.
So see, those are my issues. You
Right.
um, but that's a part of what I went through as a child, and having studied psychology, I am able to understand why I am the way that I am.
Mhm.
And so in understanding that, I was able then to work on being a better me.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know and so I kind of take my characters through those same things, where they have this epiphany one day that, wow, this person really does care for me. I need to get myself together or I'm going to lose that person
Mhm.
you know and
Yeah.
so to me, I think I write about real life. And again, for those that don't want real life, um
Maybe
it's
read
all
somebody
I
else.
know.
No,
It's all I know. But I
that's what I
don't
always
try
say
to
about
beat you
different
over
things
the
that I
head
do.
with it.
I'm
I
like,
don't try to beat you over the
I
head
accept
with it.
my brand. Like I've come to identify my brand and what it is. Like my books are always going to have family drama in them. They're always going to have, these career is always going to be a big deal. And if that's not something you like, I'm probably not the person you want to read, and I'm okay with that. I've
I
come
am
to
too.
that.
To be honest, I am too, because there are so many wonderful authors out here
Yes,
that write
so
so
many,
many
so
wonderful
many.
things. When I want fluff, I read fluff. When
Yeah.
I want, fantasy, I read sci-fi. I read across the board.
Mhm.
Whatever I'm in the mood for, that's what I'm going to read. You
Yes.
know, and I love having that freedom to do that.
Hmm.
So I want readers to have that same freedom. Don't I'm not offended if you don't read me.
Hmm.
I'm still amazed people want to read me. I
Right.
mean, you know, I'm still like, I'm like, I still feel like I'm gonna wake up one day and this is gonna all be a dream. Like I was never a published author, that I'm just, my family
It
called me
doesn't get any
Jack.
better.
So
Like
I'm just Jack. I feel like I'm gonna wake up one day and just be Jack.
that's just like okay. So I was looking at Kristen's comment earlier about because when you were talking about your book and turning it in and stuff. Because I so identify with it. Like I just turned in a book, the final version of my book Monday, from the final book in my Bourbon Brothers series. That book, as I was telling you before we came on, is
Mhm.
comes out December 28th. So in traditional world, that's super super late to be turning the book. But I was so stressed about this book because it's the final book in the series, and I want to do justice to the series and to all the readers who love the series so much. And it's the hero is Cole, who people have been asking for his book ever since he showed up in Engaging the Enemy like 3 books ago. So I was so stressed about doing this book right, and plus I felt like I kind of went in a direction where I don't know that the readers thought that's where I was going to go with him. And so like I've been super, but at the same time I felt strongly that was the story that I needed to give him. And so like I'm like a nervous wreck. So,
Well, you know what?
but
You are a fantastic writer.
thank you.
I am a fan of your work. I am so glad to hear this book is coming out.
Yes.
And I like books that surprise me. So I think that you're going to be fine. I love a surprise. So if you surprise me, you've done your job.
Okay. I'm a whew, like and but so what Kristen said was that you write the book that you can in the time you have, and that's your job, and then you do it as well as you can. Because like you said, at the very last minute, like even today, I was sitting there thinking, man, I wish I could go back over it because did I say this enough? Or, maybe I would change that. Or maybe I should, I'm still thinking of changes after all these,
Oh, I
times we went over
understand.
this book.
I
So,
understand.
And it's going to be like that to the end. Because like, even when
But you're going to have to let your baby go.
you have to let it go. Like even when I get them, because it's one of the first things I try to do when I get my books, the author books, copies delivered to me is like read through it. And, usually I always, we're hard on ourselves at some point in the process. Like you said, I always feel like I'm a fraud, or I don't know what I'm doing. Even though this is what, I don't know, 20 something books or whatever, I still always feel like that.
Me too.
But so when you get to the end and start reading it and you love the book, that's the moment that I loved. Like, you're okay, this is not crap, this is pretty good. So
Yeah, when you surprise yourself,
yes.
and I live for that moment too. I always, as soon as I get my author's copy, I give one to my husband and I take one and we read them and we talk about it.
Yes.
And I am, he's wonderful because he makes me feel really good, so you just do the best you can and you write the best story that you can. And again, I already know some people will like it, some people won't. And that's okay because at least I got a reaction.
Yes. That's true.
You know,
That is
at
true.
least you care enough to like it or not like it. So, we write.
Yes.
And I love it. And I love it so much that I would do it, for free. Glad I don't have to. But I do I love it. I love what I do. I love the stories. I actually grieve the characters. I'm so excited about this Poke Island series because I could basically go on and on and on because this little island has at least I think 1,000 people. So
So they all got stories, right?
yeah, they are stories. So I actually, love Poke Island, and I grew up, on St. Simon's Island, in Brunswick, Georgia. So I grew up on this little island, and so I created my own little fictional island, right across the bridge from Charleston, and so. I created the history, the family tree, and these people have become so real to me that recently when we were on our way to Georgia for vacation for the 4th, I'm like looking for the signs for Poke Island. And my husband's like, "What are you looking for?" I'm like, "I'm looking to see if there's something that will say Poke Island. I would love to like have a picture of it." And he's like, "You do know you made that up, right?" Because I actually did a map. I got map software and did a whole map so that I could do the streets and know which beach was what and
Yeah.
where everything was because of this series. And so I have this whole little map and I have convinced myself this island really does exist because on the coast we have Jekyll Island, we have Sapelo Island, we have Blythe Island, we have Cumberland Island. There are a lot of little islands that are not inhabited. So my Poke Island is out there.
It's out there somewhere. And look, after we end this, make sure you stay around because I need to find out which map software you were using. I'm just asking some author friends of that today because I do the same thing and I wanted to find out I just scratch it out on a pad, like the island and where everything is, and I want to do software. So I'm gonna ask you about that later on. So
Okay.
Kay says, I love the first book and I'm looking forward to the brothers story. So um, when is the next
Thank
brother?
you,
When is the brother
Kate.
story coming out?
In February.
Okay, in February. Okay, okay. So,
Yes, and it's called A Hometown Hero. Yes. Now,
so
my book Unexpected Serenity actually is a book that I independently published.
mm,
I It's the third book with the Prodigal series, and Prodigal Husband and Defining Moments were published back in 2000, so years ago. And this book I never did put out, but it stayed with me, and readers kept asking about Sheila. And so I decided to, when I wanted to reprint those books, they were my two top best-selling books, and
mm,
that's why I reprinted them. And so this book is actually the third book and final book in that series, Unexpected Serenity. And my character Sheila has multiple sclerosis. So
mm,
again, I do deal with real issues because MS, my sister had MS.
yeah,
And so MS is a real issue. They have been checking me because I've showed signs, but nothing definitive to say that I have MS.
hmm, hmm,
So it's a cause that I am very passionate about.
yeah. I do love being able to not only, like I said, there's the whole opportunity for empathy, but also like you said, education. Teaching people about different things. So,
Yeah.
like I said, in this book I just finished, it's definitely moments where people who maybe have never been around somebody or don't know somebody who has a child that's autistic,
Mhm.
it will teach you a lot about the experiences that those
Yes.
people that those families deal with, and just what they're experiencing, and just how you can help or not be helpful, or just you know, that kind of
Exactly.
thing. So
Exactly. And that's
so
like with my book, A Family for the Firefighter, also touches on Alzheimer's because his aunt is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And we actually just became caregivers for my father-in-law who has Alzheimer's.
yeah,
So I have experienced that firsthand, and what they go through. I had never ever until my father-in-law was diagnosed, and now, like I said, he's living with us, and we're his caregivers, and just he's doing great. I'm learning everything I can about it and what I need to do to try to help. But he's doing great. He is phenomenal, and I just believe that you know um, he's such a godly man too, that he hasn't progressed, and it's been a few years. I want to say 4 or 5 years now, and he hasn't progressed. So we're
that is
just
good
very
news. That is
grateful.
good news. And I know they have, like, better treatments and stuff, or now
Yeah,
therapeutics and what have you now. Because I know my
yeah,
my grandmother had Alzheimer's for the last 9 years of her life, and that was very difficult because she was like 4'10", 4'11", and had the biggest personality ever. And just, it was so hard seeing that her not be that person she has always been, all my life. Like, and you just feel like they're in there, but
exactly. And
so
that's why I'm so grateful each day that he can remember me.
yeah,
Sometimes he can't remember his where his bedroom is, and like he walked in our bedroom one day, and I think it embarrassed. I'm like, "It's fine, Poppy, it's fine,"
mhm,
And he was like, "Well, I just wanted to say good night." I said, "Okay."
yeah,
Then I walked him to his room, but he's 4'11". He's
yeah.
so cute. He's so cute. And so, it's been a joy. And I talk about that too because my grandmother, I was her caregiver until she passed away after she had a stroke. And so there's so many facets to me, and so I do write about all of those things because those things are important. I'm not the type of person, I'm not judging anyone who has to let their family member go to a facility. It's just the facilities that I have been in with family members, they were not taken care of very well, and so that's just not something I'm fond of personally. Choice, I would rather, sacrifice my time to have that family member at home with me than to be here and worry that they're not being taken care of. My father-in-law on the 4th was at the beach trying to catch the ball with my son, fell and broke his hip.
Mhm.
So what was supposed to be a 3-day trip in Georgia ended up being 10 days because he had to have surgery. And
Mhm.
we stayed because I wasn't going to leave him. And I was at that hospital every day, making sure those nurses, when he pressed that button, those nurses, I gave them a lecture. He's not saying in 10 minutes, I have to go to the bathroom. He's saying I have to
Mhm.
go now.
You're
So
right.
I need you to show up now.
Yeah.
So they were so glad to see me leave. They loved my husband. They didn't like me at all. But
But we have to be advocates for our family members and stuff. I know we've
yes,
gone through some recent stuff we definitely had to be an advocate for
yeah.
our family member who was dealing with a health issue. So,
Yeah. Well,
and
I was taught to honor my elders, and on my native side and on my black side, we honor our elders. We have much respect for them, and so there's no question.
mm, um, and thank you for all of y'all's warm comments. We appreciate that. Like
Yes,
around the sand, we readers love. I appreciate you authors for your phenomenal craft. Appreciate that so much. And a few people talked about Kathy Douglas, who is here, as well as author D.L. White. Talked about Kathy said, "I'm brave for reread my books because she doesn't reread hers." I'm gonna be honest, Kathy. Sometimes I read the books just because I just miss the characters and I enjoy the story and I just want to get into it again. So
yeah.
like I just got through reading the entire Moonlight Ridge trilogy that me, Joss, and Karen did, and like I was like going through the whole thing, and that was my first time reading their books, and then I was reading mine again. I loved it. It was
Yeah,
just
I
a
have
fun
to
story,
reread
and I
mine
I
too.
enjoyed it. So,
I
but
have to reread mine too because I have to reassure myself that I've done the best I could.
yeah, yeah. And so it does make me feel better when I go through it. And plus, it's like a lot of times I also need to kind of remind myself of the story because, like, in an ideal world, it's been a while,
Mhm.
in traditional publishing from the
Yes,
time you wrote the book
by the time
to
they
the
come
time now
out,
it comes
yes,
out, you're doing promotions, people doing interviews and stuff, and like you can't remember half that stuff anymore.
right,
You're on to
yeah,
three books down the road. So it's a way
exactly.
to familiarize myself with the story. But sometimes I also just read it. Like I read Waking Up Mary again just because I wanted the fun kind of family vibe of that book. So, but yeah. So and Deal White says I have to stop myself from rereading mine. I get caught up looking for quotes. And actually, I'm
Well,
trying.
D.L. White is a great author, so
Yes, the
oh, what is she?
which
What are you talking about, D.L.? Come on now, a fantastic
I
author,
know. It's like we're so
fantastic
hard on
author.
ourselves. We're
Yeah,
so hard on ourselves. Like wow.
and we can see it in other people, but why can't we see it in ourselves?
Yes, miss the characters for sure. um, so one of the things I would ask you is what tip would you give to someone who wants to write a story, maybe dealing with a very difficult issue? What kind of things would you tell them as a tips?
Research. If it's something that you're even if it's something you experience in your own life, you still need to research it. Even though I suffer from panic disorder, I can't tell you I know everything about it. So I still research it. Because you want to make it authentic. And for example, one of the things I often see when people write about people being bipolar, they basically talk about kind of like just the depression, and they don't really go into anything else, or they may have a super super high or super super low, which is what bipolar is. You're either very very happy or you're very very sad. There's usually no middle ground with bipolarism. The thing about it is that's not all it is. You make chronic bad choices.
Mm,
When you suffer from bipolar, you make chronic bad choices. You're promiscuous, you just make a lot of different bad choices sometimes. And again, not every symptom fits every person. So I'm kind of generalizing here, but research is important. And what you do, you go and I would go to a site that specializes in psychology. And disorders, and you look at symptoms and you pick symptoms that you feel will fit your character. You don't have to put every single one, because different people, um, depending on genetics and different things affect them. Medication, you can't just give them any medication. Usually people with bipolar have to try different medications, and sometimes has to be a combination therapy, because if they need that balance. You got to have that balance. Now, I don't expect anyone to sit here and do a research on medicine, because unless you're a doctor, I'm not going to get it. But what I'm saying is, just don't, like, one size fits all. With bipolar, is not that way. Bipolar disorder is not a one size fits all type of disorder. So research is important, and also consider, it may not be bipolar. It may be just a mood disorder. It may be a personality disorder. So research, and that's what makes your character stand out. Your research, and how organic and authentic you've made them. And so that is my one big tip: is research is extremely important.
That is so true, so true. And like we talked a lot about writing from some of the experiences that we had, but that doesn't mean everything we write is from our personal
Right,
experience and stuff.
right.
And so, like you said about books on psychology, and one of the books, like, I'm not going to get up and go across the room and get it, but I just ordered the paperback version of a book that I use in my research for writing all the time. And it's called The Emotional Wounds Thesaurus.
Yes, that's a
That
good
is a
resource.
terrific book, because it really helps you look at things like, okay, like you talked about abandonment, for
Hmm.
instance.
Yes,
For instance, so you can look that up. It is
and
abandonment.
it
Okay,
it,
what
it
kind of
gives you right.
characteristics would a person develop who
Yes,
has been abandoned as a child?
right.
And
Their
there's both
potential
positive
conflicts.
and negative,
Hmm.
traits that that person would develop. And of course, like you said, you're not gonna give them every single one, but you
Right,
look at the ones that would fit for your story and fit for your character. And
right,
then, especially if you do it for both characters, and I always do, because even though the other person might not be as damaged, one person might not be as damaged as the other, they probably have some issue that's causing them
right,
some kind of
right.
conflict in this relationship. And so then you can kind of look at how these two would integrate together. So that would be probably one of my big
And
things
there's
with
also
the research.
and there's a book called The Writer's Guide to Psychology, which covers a great deal of the mental disorders and things like that. So there are books out there for you to help you with this. And even if it's, um, you know, positive psychology, someone that is bubbly and super happy, even look that up, because there are certain traits of that person, and what does that mean that they're always bubbly? Okay, what do you know about this person? Not just that they're bubbly and sunny and always smiling, because they have lows too. How do they handle those lows? And that's part of your research. Even though someone is a optimist and is happy all the time, trust me, they're not happy all the time.
Right.
And how do they handle that? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what rounds your character out. You show them, generally they're happy all the time. Most people, for the most part, I'm a positive person. For the most part, I'm pretty happy. I've had some terrible things happen, but I choose to be happy. I choose not to lose hope. Now, there have been moments when I've had those hopeless moments. Yes, which book? What's the book title
I,
again?
I,
Is
I,
it A Writer's Guide to Psychology,
I
or
think
The
that's the one.
Emotional
Yeah, I think
Wound?
that's the one. The writer's
Okay,
guide.
yeah, there's The Emotional
The one
Wound.
that I mentioned is the emotional wound
Yeah.
thesaurus.
Hmm.
That's written by two authors who have a bunch of like thesaurus
Hmm.
kind of books, and so they have like, I use another one to
Yeah, they have about
the
yeah,
emotion
they have
thesaurus.
about
That one
six
also.
of them.
Yeah, they have several of them. So
Yeah.
I just ordered them as physical books, because I'm learning that I do better with reference books as a
Yes.
physical book
Yes.
than the
Yes.
digital, because I've had the digital books for years. But I strongly recommend that emotional. I was just talking to an author the other day who was struggling with these two characters, and I'm like, you don't know them well enough.
Right.
You need
And
to
and
find.
these books
You need to learn more
these
about
books
these two
will help
characters.
you understand your
Yes.
characters. The other one, what is it? The is it the negative trait?
Yeah, they have one that's like a
Also
negative
would
trait
go
or
more.
something like that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that will actually help you with your character's goals and motivations. So I would suggest getting the whole series. They even the newest one is about occupations. So if you want to try a different character,
Yes, I
this
heard about
book,
that. I want that one.
yes.
Yeah. Mama Tony said that's why I leave writing, y'all. It's too much work. It is, Mama Tony.
But we
Look,
love it.
we try to make it look easy, but
But we love it. We love
it's
it.
not, it's not easy. So yes, that was the book. Those were the books. So yeah. So tell us, first of all, thank you so much for coming to the show and being
Thank you.
so open and authentic and sharing your personal story with us. That means so much. So first of all, tell us the names of both of your recent releases.
A Family for the Firefighter, which came out in May, the end of May, first part of June, and Unexpected Serenity will be out actually September 30th, and it will also be released on that same day as an audiobook. So you're gonna have the print book, the ebook, and the audiobook on September 30th. It is available for pre-order, and Unexpected Serenity, just FYI, is more of what I would call my inspirational fiction. It is the last book in the Prodigal series. The first book was Prodigal Husband, the second book, Defining Moments, the third book, Unexpected Serenity. And then A Hometown Hero, the follow up to A Family for the Firefighter, will be out in February of next year. And then in October of next year, my first suspense, which I am super, super excited about. I am doing a cold case suspense for Love Inspired,
Oh, that's
and
so
it will be
awesome.
released in October.
Congratulations to you. I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Yes, and then I
That's
have two
wonderful.
titles with Intrigue. They come out 2022 and 2023.
Oh my God,
So
that's
I
awesome.
am going to be busy.
Yes, yes, I am so excited to hear that. I have been reading a lot of intrigues
Oh yeah,
lately and
I
romantic
love
suspense. Right
suspense.
now, I'm reading Sharon Carter, Sharon Cooper's one, the suspense one, and then I have some from Judo. I got a whole stack of them right here. Judo Rushton, Deborah Fletcher Mello. I've been reading a lot of suspense
Oh yeah,
lately.
Deborah. I'm a big fan of Deborah. Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
So I'm like in the midst
Well,
of this.
another one, if you haven't added
So
to your to
is
be
to
read
protect.
pile,
That's what I'm reading right now.
well, if
So
you haven't added Denise Wheatley, you want to add.
yes, I'm looking for hers next because I'm
Yes,
I'm on this with her and Richards, Katie Richards too. I love her stuff. So
yes, yes, yes,
it's been so many great I'm seeing so much more diversity in the romantic suspense
yes,
line. So I'm very,
yes.
very excited about that. So I've been reading a lot of those. So thank you. And so for anybody who's here who wants to grab Jacqueline's books, I believe we do have the links to both of those books in the description below. And if you want to, readers want to connect with you, can they connect with you, Jacqueline?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Um, I'm even on Clubhouse, and it's under my name, Jacquelin Thomas. I'm so unoriginal.
But that's good because
You
I'm gonna
know,
tell you that's a tip I give to readers all the time. My God, please use your name in your handles on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all those
yeah.
things because like a lot of times I want to shout a writer out, I want to
Hmm.
tag them and whatever, but if I have to, be searching for 15, I don't have time for that. I don't have
I
time to search for
understand.
15 minutes to
Yeah.
find out that you got some super cute, clever handle, but it's not related to your name, and I can't
Right.
find you. So
Right.
it's just and then if you can keep it consistent across all of the platforms as well, that's another tip that really makes it so much easier for readers and fellow authors who want to shout you out to
Yes.
find you. So that's
Yes.
not unoriginal. I appreciate you very much for that. So and I imagine that you can find all of your social media sites from your website, which is linked
Yes.
in the description below as
Thank you.
well.
Thank
So
you. And thank you for all that you do for other authors. It encourages my heart to see authors supporting authors. We are sisters. There's room for all of us. And, Francis taught me that from the very beginning, Donna and Gwen. And we're, but no friend Gwen are gone, but I honor their legacy. And, I'm so glad to see that we can all connect and support one another. And I hope that we continue to do so.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Thank you again for being here. And thank you for everybody who's here. Make sure you like the show to show Jacquelin how much you appreciate her being here and sharing her story with us today. And be sure to follow her all her social media sites and grab her book. So thank you for being with us. And I'll talk to you in just a sec.
Okay.
So thank you all for being here with us today. It was a fun show, wasn't it? Super informative, lots of good information, and just about learning about Jacquelin, as an individual, as an author, as well as her writing process. And I loved it. I think it was one of my favorites, right? So thank you for being here. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share the show so that other readers can find it. My next show will be on August the 18th, which is also a Wednesday at 7 p.m. And I'm going to be talking about balance and fun, family drama, and romance with author Priscilla Olivares. And also, I'm going to be chatting on IG Live this Friday at 4 with author JC Lee, who is the author of A Sweet Mess and The Dating Dare. We're going to just be chatting quickly on IG Live, a fun chat. And so, again, if you don't have a copy or if you haven't already read Dexter and Dakota's story, yeah, you get so hard with the lighting. A Second Chance on Cypress Lane. The digital copy is now on sale for $1.99, I think, for the month of August. And if you enjoy reader-centered author discussions like this one, also you can check out Brown Book Series with Shay Baby. I don't know who her guest was this week, but she talks to all kinds of authors as well. So you'll enjoy her content over there. So, and if you have any recommendations of authors that you would like to see me chat with in the future, by all means, drop it in the comments, or you can, message me on Facebook or wherever we're connected, because I'm always looking for, the next great conversation with author friends and authors that I fangirl over, like Kristen Higgins, that I love meeting or have met. So be sure to share your recommendations of who you'd like to see on the show in the future. And also, if there's a book that you've read that deals with a tough issue that you really enjoyed, drop that in the comments for the video so that people can see that in the future as a rec for books that deal with tough issues in great ways. So thanks for joining me. And until next time, happy reading.